It still stings when I think about the last time we spoke. The silence that fell between us wasn't peaceful, it was sharp, like shards of glass cutting into something I thought was unbreakable. I remember the way the words hovered, unsaid, thickening the air until it felt impossible to breathe. We'd been inseparable for years, sharing secrets, dreams, and countless late-night talks. I never imagined that the very foundation of our friendship could crumble without a clear reason or dramatic fallout. The truth is, it wasn't one big event that tore us apart. It was a series of small betrayals, misunderstandings, and things left unsaid that slowly eroded the trust between us. I remember the first time I noticed the change. It was subtle, your responses became shorter, your smiles less genuine, the warmth in your eyes fading. I brushed it off, thinking maybe you were just busy or stressed. But the distance grew faster than I could keep up. Invitations stopped coming, phone calls went unanswered, and I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about us. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation that shook me. You were talking about me, but the words weren't kind. It felt like a punch to the gut, realizing that the person I trusted most in the world had been harboring resentment. I wanted to confront you, to ask what went wrong, but something held me back. Fear, pride, maybe both. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face the possibility that our friendship was over. Instead, I started replaying every moment, every conversation, searching for clues. Was it something I said, something I did? The more I searched, the more tangled the mess became. There were times when I reached out, desperate to bridge the gap. I sent messages, tried calling, even showed up unannounced, hoping to catch a glimpse of the friend I once knew. But you kept your distance, your silence louder than any words you could have spoken. It was as if you had built a wall between us, brick by brick, and I was left outside, knocking in vain. One night I found an old photo of us laughing together, arms wrapped around each other, completely carefree. The contrast between that moment and the cold reality now made my chest ache. I started to wonder if friendships were supposed to hurt this much when they end. If the pain of losing someone so close was a necessary price for growing up and moving on. Sometimes I catch myself imagining how things could have been different if I had been more honest, more patient, less stubborn. But hindsight is a cruel companion, offering clarity only after the damage is done. I remember the night we finally spoke again after weeks of silence. The conversation was awkward and strained, filled with half-truths and apologies that didn't quite reach the heart. You told me you felt hurt, betrayed even, by things I didn't realize had affected you so deeply. I listened, trying to understand, but inside I was crumbling, realizing how much I had missed along the way. It was clear that the friendship we once had was no longer the same. Something essential had been lost, replaced by doubt and regret. As the weeks turned into months, the silence grew heavier. We both avoided reaching out, unsure if the other wanted to mend the cracks or if it was better to let go. I missed the comfort of those easy conversations, the way we used to finish each other's sentences without thinking. But I also feared reopening wounds that had barely begun to heal. There were moments when I thought about sending a simple message just to say hello, to break the ice, but the fear of rejection held me back every time. Sometimes I wonder if you feel the same emptiness I do, or if you've moved on entirely, leaving our memories behind like faded photographs. I remember the last time I saw you standing across the room at a mutual friend's gathering. We exchanged a brief, tense smile, an acknowledgement of what was lost but never spoken. The hardest part has been accepting that some friendships don't have neat endings. They just fade, leaving behind echoes that haunt quiet moments. I find myself clutching onto the good times, the laughter and shared dreams, like fragile lifelines in a sea of uncertainty. But I also know that holding on too tightly can cause more pain, twisting memories into something unrecognizable. What hurts most is not the loss itself, but the absence of closure, the unanswered questions, and the walls built from silence. I've started writing letters I never intend to send, pouring out everything I wish I could say without fear or hesitation. In those letters, I confront the anger, the sadness, and the confusion, hoping to make sense of the tangled emotions that have become part of me. Sometimes I read those words and feel a flicker of release, as if admitting the pain aloud makes it a little less heavy. Other times, the words feel like a wound reopened, raw and aching, reminding me how fragile trust can be. I've learned that friendships are complicated, sometimes beautiful and enduring, other times fragile and fleeting. We invest so much of ourselves, expecting reciprocity, but sometimes the other person isn't ready or able to give the same back. I think about how we both changed over time, drifting apart not just because of conflict, but because life pulled us in different directions. The busy schedules, new relationships, and personal struggles created distance that neither of us knew how to close. I've come to realize that sometimes friendships end not with a bang, but with a slow, quiet unraveling. It's easy to blame someone, to call it betrayal or selfishness, but the truth is often murkier, tangled in fear, pride, and misunderstanding. I wish I could go back and say the things I held inside, to be braver in those moments when silence felt safer. But then I wonder if speaking up would have made a difference or just hastened the inevitable. One night I dreamed we were back together, laughing like old times. But when I reached out, your hand slipped away and the dream dissolved into emptiness. That dream stayed with me for days, a haunting reminder of what was lost and what can never be fully regained. I've found myself gazing at our old photos, tracing the smiles frozen in time, and wondering if you ever do the same. There's a strange comfort in knowing that we shared something real, even if it couldn't survive the cracks. Sometimes I imagine a future where we might reconnect, older and wiser, able to face the past without fear. But I'm not sure if that's hope or just a fragile fantasy I cling to on lonely nights. The hardest lesson has been understanding that not all relationships are meant to last forever, even when they feel like family. I've tried to tell myself that it's okay to grieve a friendship like a loss, to allow space for healing without guilt. But healing is messy and unpredictable. Some days the pain feels fresh, and other days it's just a dull ache beneath the surface. I've shared pieces of this story with a few close friends, and their empathy has been a balm to my wounded heart. Hearing their own stories of broken friendships reminds me I'm not alone in this confusing, painful experience. We all carry these invisible scars, reminders of connections that once meant everything but somehow slipped away. Sometimes, when I walk past places we used to hang out, a wave of nostalgia crashes over me, bittersweet and heavy. I wonder if those places remember us, if they hold echoes of our laughter and whispered secrets beneath the quiet. The truth is, I still care deeply, even when distance and silence have become our new normal. That care is complicated, part love, part sorrow, part frustration at what could have been. I've debated reaching out again, but the fear of reopening old wounds or being met with indifference holds me back. Sometimes I think the hardest part is not knowing if the other person misses you or if you're the only one left holding on. I've come to understand that broken friendships are not failures, but reflections of the human condition, imperfect, evolving, and fragile. We grow, change, and sometimes lose each other along the way, even when we don't want to. I wish there was a manual for navigating the end of a friendship, something to guide us through the mess of emotions. But all I have are these stories and memories, tangled together like threads in a tapestry that's unraveling. I hope that by sharing this, others will feel less alone when their friendships fall apart, and maybe find the courage to face their own silence. Because sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones left unspoken, and those silences echo louder than any words ever could. And yet, despite it all, I hold on to the possibility that one day, somehow, the distance between us might shrink. Maybe not to what it was, but to something new, something honest and healing. Until then, I'm learning to live with the quiet, carrying the broken pieces of our friendship like fragile glass in my hands. It's a daily practice of hope and sorrow, of remembering and letting go all at once. I don't know what the future holds or if we'll ever speak again, but I do know that some friendships change us forever. And even in their breaking, they leave an imprint on our hearts that time cannot erase. So here I am, sharing this story, not for answers, but to acknowledge the messy, painful beauty of what it means to lose someone you once called a friend. And maybe, just maybe, to find a little peace in the silence that remains. Because sometimes, the real reason we don't speak is too complicated for words, wrapped up in fear, pride, and the fragility of human connection. But telling the story is the first step toward understanding, and perhaps, someday, forgiveness. For now, the silence between us is still there, a vast and empty space filled with memories and what-ifs. And I'm left sitting with it, trying to make sense of a friendship that was both my greatest joy and deepest sorrow. This is not the end of the story, just a chapter, one filled with heartache, honesty, and the messy realities of growing up. And as I write these words, I wonder if you're doing the same somewhere, feeling the same ache and longing for what we lost. Maybe one day, those walls will come down and we'll find our way back to each other, or at least to a place of peace. Until then, I carry these broken pieces with me, a testament to a friendship that shaped me in ways I'm only beginning to understand. And that's the truth behind the silence, the real reason we don't speak anymore.